I'm joined this week by 4 journalists from 4 different outlets across the state. Dan Boyd is here. He's the Capitol Bureau Chief for the Albuquerque Journal. Elaine Baumgartel is here. She's the news director at KUNM, 89.9 on your dial. Inez Russell Gomez is here. She's the opinion page editor at the Santa Fe New Mexican. And reporter Andy Lyman is back. It's the online news New Mexico site, the site NM Political Report. He's here with us. Now, Dan, we've talked a lot in recent weeks here on the line about how we ended up in this special in the first place. Let's step back just a little bit in case somebody hasn't been paying attention the last couple of months. You never know. How did we get here, so to speak? What led up to this point?
Sure. Kind of the Cliff Notes version is, 60-day session. They passed the budget, but not a lot of revenue bills to go along with it. There were real concerns about how to pay for that budget. The governor vetoed big chunks out of the budget, including all funding for higher education and the legislature.
Right.
So, as of July 1, they wouldn't have gotten any funding, which would have been disastrous. So all along, I think everyone intended to restore that, but there were still questions about how to kind of get it done and how to pay for government operations. So the governor called the special session, and that's what, just as of last week, so only 5-6 weeks before the new fiscal year.
Right. In leading up to it, Democrats had their own take on things. Speaker Egolf came out, I think, just a couple days before the special and said, look, the tax reform thing's not happening. We don't have anything to do with it. We'll talk about all that in a quick second, but touch on that for a quick second. Where's that tax overhaul thing sit right now?
Yeah, so this was some people call it tax reform, tax overhaul, a big change in the gross receipts tax that Republican State Representative Jason Harper had been working on, spent a lot of time on during the 60-day session, and wanted to bring it back for the special session, but the bill wasn't actually even introduced and ready to go while they were going back into session. So I think there was a lot of concern just about unforeseen impact or consequences of this and kind of doing it on the fly.
Right.
So that obviously did not happen in the special session.
But not dead. Not dead. We're going to have to get to that at some point, tax reform. So
right, not dead, but on hold.
Right, good enough as to say. Inez, interestingly, when I think about the governor and her position on this leading up to it, I don't see how it could have come out any other way than the way it's come out now. Do you know what I mean? I didn't see her with a lot of leverage here going into the situation. What was your thought on this?
Well, my thought was that it never should have happened because when the Democrats in the legislature, with some Republican support in the Senate, passed the budget and passed a revenue package, all she had to do was veto the parts of the revenue package she didn't like, which would include the gas tax. She didn't want a gas tax. Fine, you get rid of that. You keep a couple of the closed loopholes. Maybe you cut a few things in the budget, so then you have a constitutionally mandated balanced budget, and you're done. And she would have had all the control in the world. Instead, she had what seemed to be a fit and canceled all the higher education spending. The legislative stuff was not as important as higher education because it turned out that veto affected, I think they figured out $3 billion in additional spending when it came to federal funds and all these other things that go through our colleges. And then you have to recover from that. And they recovered by borrowing $100 million in bond money to balance the budget. So now, if anything goes wrong, we have $24 million in revenues in our reserve account, basically your savings account. So if anything happens that we're not expecting, if oil goes down, if GRTs don't work, we're going to be back at this again with a governor who says no new taxes, no new revenues. But I don't want to cut anymore either because everyone kind of realizes schools have taken a hit, universities have taken a hit.
And how much more can we cut really when you think about the services outside those situations?
Right.
It's difficult. Elaine, Inez just brought up the interesting part about our bond money and our bond rating potentially. John Arthur Smith is concerned that we could take another dunk here fairly soon. Does borrowing this way contribute to that possibility?
I guess I'm seeing that reported for sure.
Yeah,
that there's a potential that the bond rating could be dropped because of that low amount of cash reserves, right? I find it curious. I wonder a bit about the timing of the special session and the lawsuit that was filed against the governor questioning her vetoes. And the Supreme Court declined to hear that lawsuit and said, no, you have these other options, go figure out the other options. That raises questions for me.
Doesn't it though?
About the timing and the decision-making process and which which are the strategies.
Were Democrats
that-
too quick to pull the trigger, in your view? Should they have waited for a legislative fix before they had gone to the Supreme Court to do this? I mean, okay.
No, I mean, I guess they didn't seem to be interested necessarily in pushing the special session, but more in saying you shouldn't have done vetoes in the first place.
Right.
Is at least what I understand that argument to have been, that they were unconstitutional.
Right,
to
exactly
begin
right.
with.
And that may in fact come around, Andy, where we're going to have some clarification on that. The idea that, I'm going back to John Arthur Smith and what Inez brought up, the lack of reserves that we have now. There's been a precipitous fall since about 2010, 2011. I mean, we're dealing with, I don't want to say fumes, but it's starting to get to that point, and July 1st is not terribly far away. What's the next move for some of these people, do you think? Is the governor going to be brought to bear here for taxes? At some point, are we going to see revenue enhancements in your view?
That's a really good question. I mean, you mentioned that it's been happening for a while. It seems like every year John Arthur Smith has the same message saying, we're out of money, we don't have reserves, we need to do something here. During the special session, I did hear some conversations from Republicans saying we need to figure out new money from not just oil and gas. I mean,
Right.
Senator Bill Scherer, who's an oil and gas man, said, I'm an oil and gas man, and I love that the state's dependent on oil, but we need to do something else because we can't, it's too volatile and I think until we find some more revenues, it's going to be always trying to catch up, borrowing money. And yeah.
That's right. The $100 a barrel days are gone. I mean, it's just not going to come back anytime soon, it seems to me. Dan, where do we go from here is for the second part of our conversation, it was interesting. Again, I harken back to the thought that at some point, this is going to be back on the governor's desk. The idea that, reserves are going like this, income's going like this. You have to change the tune, so to speak, somehow. Let's cut down the individual taxes. She did not want a gas tax. What was the reasoning behind that?
I think, she, to her credit, has been ever since she took office against standalone tax increases, and that I think she felt clearly met the definition, would impact, she said, New Mexico families. There's an argument that maybe now when gas prices are lower would be a good time to do that, but what we were just talking about, I don't see any revenue increases in the next 18 months. As far as tax increases, while she's still in office, she's been very consistent on that. There is this idea of maybe closing loopholes as part of a bigger overhaul, but that seems to be, still need a lot of work before folks are ready to jump on board there.
Makes sense. You think about this, Inez. There's been so many things lately. I'm thinking for the PERA and the retirement situation just a couple of weeks ago, it seems like, just recently. Is that indicative of something here? Because that was only $12.5 million they were looking to take out of that situation. That's not going to balance anything. So we can't keep hopping from one part-time fix to the next part-time fix. I ask again, what situation could possibly come to bear where we could change the tune here in New Mexico?
I think the election and a new governor and a new legislature, different voices.
Right.
This governor has kind of drawn her line in the sand, and she did say she didn't want to raise taxes, but then she kind of changed it a little bit when they were talking about complete GRT reform, because she said, I'll put food taxes back on the table.
Right.
And the so-called tortilla tax, of course, is something that so many groups don't want. But she was willing to talk about it, which would be a big tax increase on working families if it was in the midst of the other tax reform.
Right.
So perhaps that's one way to reach her, is to put it in part of reform.
Right, exactly right. Speaker Regal on the House Side has called for a special session, well, not a special session, interim committee, if that's the right term, at a cost of $400,000 to look at this. And I'm a little unnerved about this whole thing, because tax reform and tax overhaul, isn't that a full-time legislative kind of a gig, it seems to me? What am I missing here? You can't cut at this in 48 hours and expect something decent to happen.
That's certainly what the lawmakers seem to say
Right.
by not picking up that bill.
Yeah.
You'd think it'd take a lot of time to go comb through New Mexico's tax policies and determine how to make those changes.
And hear from the public, and hear from those affected.
And I get that there's going to be a study. I also, people have been studying stuff for a long time. The different ways that making changes to the tax system affect folks in New Mexico. We've had a bunch of recent, the past 15, 20 years, tax cuts, multiple different tax cuts, big tax cuts.
Right.
And so,
to the tune
how
of
much analysis has been
$1 billion plus that we've walked out the door.
Yeah,
We
how
just
much
had a
of
report.
that
Exactly right.
analysis is going to be looking at the impact of tax cuts in order to be able to weigh those in comparison to the impact of tax increases?
Right.
within that conversation about how to change the entire tax system.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And Andy, finally, no politician makes a move of this side unless they feel like they've got some cover. And usually that means constituents have their backs, like the public is wanting this to happen. Is it your feeling that the public has either weighed in fully or not on this tax thing? Are we just at the beginning of this conversation? Or where's the public in this
I think the whole issue is really complicated, and I think depending on where your viewpoint is, there's a lot of gross receipts tax exemptions that help out a lot of people that other people's, I mean, for instance, if you buy a racehorse or sell a racehorse, you're exempt from gross receipts tax. It's a lot different than journalists that are working freelance that have to pay 7% gross receipts while they're, So I think it depends on where you're coming from in the public view, but it's also very complicated, and I think a study might help to look at, what are we doing wrong? What are we doing right? What could we be doing better? And actually get some outside eyes on what we're doing.
I made a reference in passing to the study put out there by Tim Keller that showed we've walked, like I said, I'm being a little flip here, but $1 billion worth of revenue has walked out the door from tax breaks. I mean, that's a lot of money. That could balance a lot of things when you think about it. Not all of those are going to be exempted, rolled back certainly. But it does make the point there's some room, it seems to me, to claw back something.
Yeah, I think there's been, a couple of lawmakers have proposed to just get rid of all what they call carve-outs or exemptions and then just start from scratch. There's also opponents that say, well, look, eventually we're going to get back to where we are now because every year somebody says, wait, I shouldn't be paying gross receipts on this, and let's take that out.
That's right. And up next on the line, we'll talk about what we now know about the cost of that security at the Milo Yiannopoulos event at UNM earlier this year.